China is the world leader when it comes to selling electric cars. In 2024, China sold 11 million of these, and that's more than 60% of all electric cars sold in the world. And if you compare this with India, there's a stark contrast. India sold just around 1 lakh electric cars in the same period, and that's less than 1% of China's numbers. And if that wasn't enough, by July 2024, China had hit a major milestone. 50% of all the new cars sold in the country are now electric. As for India, our electric car penetration last year was just 2%. So it's very clear from these numbers that China is far ahead of us in terms of electric cars. Now let's talk about two-wheelers, as India is majorly a two-wheeler market, and it is something that makes up for 3/4 of all the vehicles in our country. In 2024, India sold a total of 1.14 million electric two-wheelers, which is around 6% of the total two-wheelers sold in the country. China in the same period sold 6.9 million EV two-wheelers, which is 53% of the total sales. So again, both the total number of two-wheelers sold and EV penetration is much higher in China. The reason for such dominance by China is that it controls the entire supply chain of electric vehicles. From battery production to infrastructure needed for EVs, China is well above not just India but the entire world. Let's take batteries for example. China controls almost 80% of the world's battery production capacity. India is not even on the list. And when we talk about batteries, one key component we need is lithium. China is just 6.5% of the global lithium reserves. But despite this, almost 60% of the world's lithium is sent to China for refining. India, on the other hand, is again nowhere on the list. So how has China come to absolutely dominate this space, whereas India is lagging far behind? To answer this question, we need to go back in time a little. Back in the early 2000s, China was booming. Its GDP had doubled between 2000 and 2005, and as a result, the car ownership in the country was skyrocketing. In just 5 years, the number of cars on China's roads had jumped from 6 lakhs to nearly 40 lakhs. But there was a problem. Pollution. Industrialization in China happened so rapidly that it soon became the air pollution capital of the world. Now, the Chinese government calculated that nearly 1/3 of its air pollution was because of cars. Then there was another big issue China was facing: oil. By 2004, China had become the world's second largest oil consumer, just behind the US. But unlike the US, China did not have its own oil reserves. It was importing billions of dollars worth of oil every year. And this is when this guy comes into the picture. His name is Van Gang, and he was a scientist. Van did his PhD in mechanical engineering. After that, he worked for almost a decade for German car company Audi and learned the ins and outs of the car industry. In the year 2000, Van made a bold proposal to the Chinese government. The title of this was Regarding Development of Automobile New Clean Energy as the Starting Line for Leap Forward of China's Automobile Industry. His idea was that Chinese company cannot compete with Japanese, American or German petrol car makers. Instead, it should focus on new technologies like electric vehicles. And this way, China would have an equal chance of competing and even taking the lead in this new sector. And along with tackling pollution, this will also help them reduce dependence on foreign oil. This was the birth of China's EV revolution. And they put Van Gang in charge. He was immediately appointed as the chief scientist in the government and was later made Minister of Science and Technology. Meanwhile, India wasn't even thinking about EVs. We had much bigger issues to tackle. In 2005, 42% of Indians lived below the poverty line. Half of the country did not have access to toilets, and income inequality was among the highest in the world. And because of all this, electric vehicles were not on the priority list for our government. It was busy providing basic things to people. It was only in 2013, more than a decade after China, that the Indian government took its first steps in promoting EVs. It launched something called National Electric Mobility Mission Plan, and the main goal of this plan was that by 2020, India would sell 6 to 7 million new electric vehicles every year. But what happened to this goal? Well, in 2020, India sold around 1.2 lakh electric vehicles across all categories, which is just 1.8% of the target our government had put. China, meanwhile, had become the world leader in EVs by 2020, accounting for 41% of all EV sales in the world. And this number, by the way, has reached 64% in 2024. So 2 out of 3 EV cars sold last year in the world was in China, which is mind-blowing. So how did China succeed in its EV strategy, whereas India failed completely? The first and the main reason is the government support. See, when the Chinese government decided that they want to adopt EVs, they went really aggressive to make it happen. They made this guy their science and technology minister. So all the EV policies and technology discussions went through him. Now, can you even imagine something like this happening in India? A scientist who's made science and technology minister? In India, ministries are mainly given on the basis of which leader has a bigger vote share. their qualifications are rarely considered. And if you don't believe me, check out who were the science and technology ministers in the last 20 years and then see their contribution to science. Coming back to our story, Wang Gang did 3 key things to boost EV ecosystem in China. For car manufacturers, he first introduced heavy tax cuts, then massive subsidies of as much as $60 billion from 2009 to 2022. And he also enforced a 10% EV quota, which meant that the car companies have to make at least 10% electric vehicles every year. And finally, China signed trade-free agreements with many countries, which allowed them to export their EV cars without any tariffs. Then for customers, China introduced incentives like direct purchase subsidies, which gave buyers subsidies up to $8,000 or as much as 7 lakh rupees per car. Next, they removed vehicle purchase tax of 10% from EVs, which further made them cheaper. China also made license plates for the electric vehicles free of cost, which generally cost tens of thousands of dollars for gasoline cars. And finally, they took basic steps like making parking free for EV vehicles and also give them cheaper loans, sometimes at 0% interest rates if they want to buy an EV. And these steps made it very easy for residents to buy electric vehicles. As a result, EV adoption in China went up dramatically. From a mere 8,000 EVs sold in 2011, the number went to 11 million by 2024. The Indian government, on the other hand, tried to learn from China, but it did not pan out as they had planned. To begin with, India was already late to announce subsidies. In 2015, the government finally announced FAME 1 subsidy. Its goal, as the name states, was faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles through subsidies. This scheme, however, failed for the most part. Firstly, because the budget of the scheme was too small. It was just around $120 million spent over 4 years, which means around $30 million every year. China, for comparison, was spending billions of dollars every year. And this $30 million was not enough to incentivize both car companies to make EVs and consumers to buy them. The government did increase the budget in FAME 2 subsidy to $1.5 billion, but it was still not enough to boost EVs in India. Why? Because we did not have these. This is an EV battery, the most important component of an electric vehicle. In fact, the battery alone is 40% of the electric vehicle's price. And while China took a long-term approach to win the battery race, India never took any serious steps in this direction. And again, there is one person who birthed the entire battery revolution in China. His name is Chen Liquan. Chen was a physicist who was studying about lithium nitride during his college days. This is a chemical basically which is used to make solid-state batteries. Now, this year was 1976, and the world was going through an oil crisis. OPEC countries had stopped exporting oil to the US, and this increased the oil prices around the world. Chen soon realized that the world has to find new energy sources and not just rely on oil. This insight pushed him to return to China and start the country's first lab to research and build batteries. By 1988, and with the help of government support, Chen Liquan and his team had built the first solid-state battery in China. Then in 1990s, when lithium-ion batteries started becoming mainstream, Chen and his team also built China's first lithium-ion battery. This story is very similar to Wang Gang that we talked about earlier. A scientist who was working in a different country and who came back to China to work for his own, and with the help of the government started a battery revolution in the country. And while Chen and his team were focused on building lithium-ion batteries, the Chinese government was busy sourcing lithium for their local companies. See, China did not have a lot of lithium in their own country, and so what their government did was they strategically acquired lithium mines around the world. For example, in 2018, Chinese company Tianqi Lithium bought a 24% stake in a Chilean mining company for $4.1 billion. Similarly, China acquired lithium mines around the world through state-backed investment, long-term partnerships, and diplomatic trade agreements. And as a result of all these efforts, even though China has less than 7% of global lithium reserves, it processes 60% of the world's lithium. This is some next-level dominance over a crucial global supply chain of lithium. Meanwhile, India was decades behind China in building lithium-ion batteries. It was only during the FAME 2 subsidy in 2019 that the government for the first time supported battery development in India. And as a result, in 2023, almost 28 years after China, India built its first ever lithium-ion battery cell. The Indian government is now also giving incentives to battery manufacturers under the PLI scheme, and many companies like Ola Electric, Tata Chemicals, and Amara Raja Batteries have set up factories to build lithium-ion battery cells in India. But despite this, India still imports 100% of its lithium from outside, and almost 95% of this comes from China and Hong Kong. This shows how dependent we are on China for our battery manufacturing. But at least now the Indian government has realized the importance of batteries, and they have set an aim to produce 50 gigawatt hour of batteries annually by 2025. And this number, by the way, is nothing compared to the Chinese standards. One single company in China named CATL manufactured 339 gigawatt hour of batteries in 2024. So basically, one Chinese company produces almost 7 times more batteries than what the entire Indian government is aiming for. And this Chinese company, by the way, is the largest battery manufacturer in the world with almost 38% global market share. The second company on this list is Chinese too, which shows the dominance China holds in battery manufacturing. And one fun fact here, you know who is the mentor and chief advisor of this company CATL? Chen Likuan, the same guy who started the battery revolution in China. Today his company is the world leader in battery manufacturing, and it supplies batteries to almost every major EV brand from Tesla to Ola Electric. So this was a brief comparison between India and China in the field of electric vehicles. And the idea behind making this video was not to show how far ahead China is or how much behind India is. The idea is to learn what they did right. Instead of mindlessly blaming China for everything that's wrong with their country, I want us to learn from them on what they're doing right. India and China started their journeys around the same time, but while China has become an economic superpower, India is still struggling to find its right place. The main takeaway for me from this video was the story of Wang Gang and Chen Likuan. How two students went abroad to study and work, but later came back and changed the face of two key industries. And more important than that is the role of the Chinese government in identifying and supporting these talents. I want to see same thing happening in India. Most of our IT talent goes out of the country and never returns back. They spend their lives building for other countries. I want them to come back and build here. But this is easier said than done. The government has to create an environment that convinces these talents sitting outside that they can come back to India and realize their potential to its fullest. We have to remove the red tape culture in the government and bring talented people in key sectors like EV, AI, and semiconductors. In the end, I want to hear from you. What has been your biggest takeaway from this video? And what are some key things we can learn from China in the field of EVs? Also, is there a sector that you want to see a similar comparison? Write it in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.